Greys are basically robots. Does the 3 times check, is it affected when communicating with them?
Usually they just go silent when you try to give them a 3 times check. Remember, no answer is a no.
And also, I don't recommend attempting to communicate with Greys unless you've got a sword in your hand and you're planning to chop its head off.
Yeah. Greys are untrustworthy enough that you can pretty much assume they're there to do you harm.
Greys are basically think of them as like a parasitic virus that is infecting the entire universe. They are under extinction protocols by the Galactic Federation of Planets for a reason, not just because we don't like them.
Any comments about the Great Pyramid? Who built it? Its age? And what purpose is it used for?
Well, the pyramids in general all around the planet have multiple different purposes and uses. The specific pyramids of Giza, Egypt, the 3 of them were built roughly about 35,000 years ago. They were built with the original intent and purpose of having them as space stations, or like a place to set your ship down when you're coming from another planet, kind of thing. There's multitude of different uses, and we still have yet not, to this day, discovered even the Federation and the people upstairs have not fully discovered everything that the pyramids are being used for, can be used for, are capable of being used for, that kind of thing. We're still uncovering that.
If all the bad guys are clones and the rest begin, then are you saying we will be incarcerating clones? And what happens to the real entities?
Well, they're not all clones. A lot of them are, at least a lot of the public ones are. I don't know what's going to go on in terms of what happens to the real ones. I imagine it would really center around what they're actually guilty of. The actions of the clone can't really be blamed on the original, especially since clones do what they're programmed to or what their handlers make them.
And so most likely what we'll be doing is whoever was in control of the clone at the time of whatever the clone did would be the one that would be held at fault for whatever that specific incident was.
Is there anything obvious that everyone can easily notice regarding the transitioning to 4D?
Well, yeah, the actual transition itself is going to be pretty darn obvious. As for precursors, well, take a look around you. Things are changing.
And I did want to say the Federation does know about when the transition is going to happen. I am simply refraining from conveying that, Jane, because I will not put time frames on anything, because this is a cosmic event, and it could happen anywhere within a certain time frame. And, I've seen so many people, even with Drake, the minute he utters 2 days or something like that, and it doesn't happen,
somebody sticks a foot in it and causes a problem.
Will people who have never meditated or even heard of ascension go into complete shock if this happens to everyone at once?
Well, no doubt there's going to be some very, very surprised people. The ones I'm most worried about are actually people who have a very, very entrenched religious belief that is not subject to evidence. Where it doesn't matter what evidence or proof you give them of an alternate explanation, they will not change their minds about their beliefs. Those are the people I'm the most worried about, because this is going to be hard for them psychologically to grasp and to understand.
If it's a good idea, even though we're expecting a peaceful transition and a more peaceful existence in 4D, to still be on guard because of the presence of the reptilians and those like the Greys and the other regressives in the 40 and higher dimensions?
I would say yes. We have a universal right to self-defense. This would be part of that. Be vigilant, at least until such a time where every human being on this planet is trained in their own self-defense or knows what to do and has access to defense in the case of an emergency. Be vigilant. And, that could take a couple 100 years before it's the case, so keep your eye out. Don't do things that are unwise or invite trouble. And if you see something, question it. If you see something that might be that you think might be reptilian action, question it. Don't take everything for granted. At least until this planet is fully liberated. And everybody on this planet has the ability to toe-to-toe it with a reptoid. Yes,
right.
the Earth is hollow, but not like a empty balloon. There's still a core. There's still quite a bit of material in there. There are hollow layers. There are also a vast network of subterranean caverns. We have the people of Telos and the Agarsons who have been evacuated at Gaia's request because they were found to be hindering things for Terrans on the surface. And since they are not of the same vibrational frequency as Earth, she requested that they leave in order so that her chosen children, that is, you guys, would have a chance to continue on unhindered. When transition is over and everything, the dust has settled, they'll be given the option to come back if Gaia welcomes them back. She might not.
And if they agree to not, behave in negative and suppressive ways.
Yeah, in general, those societies were very positive or neutral, but apparently they had enough factions among them that weren't, that Gaia wanted them out for the duration. They were not put to death, they were not destroyed, they were just evacuated at the request of Gaia.
I heard Earth-like planets are mostly considered females. Is this accurate, and why?
Yes. I have no idea why it is, but for some reason most suns are male and most planets are female.
Is there an entrance to the inner Earth at the North Pole, as stated by Admiral Richard E. Byrd?
Yeah, and the South Pole as well.
Yep. Also, the sun is transitioning to a blue-white star from a yellow-white star, and that's part of the transition too. And I've seen in a lot of cases people mentioning that the sun looks very, very white right now, and that is part of the transition because the sun's going to, become blue-white to where, it'll match with the vibrational frequency of the solar system. Well, the density will be about 90% less, but the gravitational force, the gravitational centrifugal force of the planet in relation to the density will still remain the same. It's one way in 3D because it's a 3D planet, but once it transitions to 4D, it'll still be the equivalent, but at 4D levels.
Earth's matter will change, but her mass is expected to be the same, so the gravitic force would be the same.
Right. I mean, considering the fact that gravity comes from a radiation wave of the star that the planet orbits around, and anything with 29 mile circumference or greater will have its own natural gravitational force, as long as it's in orbit of a star.
Will the people have some time for rest and relaxation after all the events?
Well, it really depends on how things shake down, honestly. We're hoping, yes, because people are going to need a little time to sort of absorb what went on and come to an understanding. There's going to be people who are really going to have to come outside of their belief and comfort zone. So, yeah, I would imagine that the first couple of months, at least, probably nobody's going to get a lot done, speaking in a broad sense. There'll be a lot of people who will be working their butts off and getting a lot done, but I think the average person will probably be taking some time to think about what's gone on and, really come up to speed and rest. Yes, you could do both at the same time. There will be a transition time in which things are kind of up in the air. And honestly, if your kids miss a month or two of school, or a formalized education, it is no big deal. It is more of a big deal if you miss a month or two of food or water. So, that is one of the things that will eventually catch up, but it's not number one priority. Don't worry, your kids will have hundreds of years in which to catch up. They're not going to be living for under 100 years. They're going to be living a lot longer. Most of them won't even be adults until they've hit about the 200 or 300-year-old mark.
Well, also what kids are taught is going to change completely too, because the whole true history of the planet, the solar system, the galaxy, and an abridged version of the history of the universe is going to be introduced, and it's a whole lot different than what anybody's been taught down here. Think about it. The planet itself is only 7.5 billion years old. The universe is close to 900 centillion years old.
Heck, you might even be sharing seminars with your kids, because there'll be a lot that you'll want to catch up on as well that you missed out on. Let's talk about 5D. I think it's probably because these people have decided, bigger and better, 40 ain't good enough, and hyped it up, right? Most of the people who are native Terrans, who are naturally 3D, will be going to 4. Those who come from 5th, 6th, or higher will be going to 5th, 6th, or higher. It's that simple. The only reason you're hearing it from these guys is because it's largely pumped by the channelers. This whole notion of you're going to 5D, and it was to sort of pull a one-upmanship over the ones who were saying 4D, to make the people who follow those messages feel like they're more important, or going to go better, or be better people, or get more than the people who don't follow those messages. If you're one of these people who's chemtrailing, you're a chemtrail pilot, and you're one of the portions of chemtrail pilots who thinks that you're doing the world a favor by destroying the bottom feeders, you might as well stop now before we stop you.
Yeah, and if you think you're doing it because it has to do with global warming, which is a myth anyway.
It's not because of global warming. You're doing it to kill people. You're doing it to kill the Earth.
You're doing it to block the positive ETs from coming here and helping.
And to poison the soil.
And to poison the
animals. Kill the plants and animals and all of the people. You are not stopping global warming. Global warming is a fiction devised to use as an excuse to take such drastic, horrific measures against the planet. If you're doing it because you're threatened, some allowances are made for that. If you're doing this because you feel you genuinely have no alternative, some allowances are made for that. If you're doing it because you're thinking you're doing good, you are not. Stop. If you are doing it because you really want to fuck people up, pardon my language, guess what? You get what's coming to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to...
we can tell.
We can. And, another thing that chemtrails are contributing to is very, very dangerous and deadly outcomes for the planet, the solar system, the galaxy, the universe, also blocking a lot of the important transitional energies for the planet and for the population, and contributing to the transhumanism agenda, which is very, very bad and very, very evil.